Welcome back to TonightTales audio. The story continues. Part 1 was only the beginning. New emotions, new moments, and feelings that can no longer be ignored. So once again, sit back, relax, and let the story continue. This is TonightTales audio. And this is part 2. The rain stopped. Not completely, but enough to leave the air fresh and cool, carrying the faint scent of wet pavement and early autumn. She noticed it as she stood near the cafe window, watching the last few drops slide slowly down the glass. The sky had begun to clear, patches of pale blue appearing between the clouds. Behind her, chairs scraped softly against the floor as customers gathered their things and prepared to leave. The day was winding down. He finished the last sip of his coffee and set the cup carefully on the table. For a moment, he remained still, his fingers resting lightly against the warm porcelain. Then, he looked up at her.
Would you like to take a walk?
He asked.
Just around the block.
He gestured toward the window where the clouds were slowly drifting apart.
The weather seems to be giving us a chance.
She followed his gaze. Outside, the street looked calm, the sidewalks still damp but no longer crowded with umbrellas. Leaving the cafe meant stepping beyond the quiet safety of routine. "All right," she said. A small smile appeared on his face, genuine, almost boyish. They stood at the same time, an unspoken coordination between them. She reached for her coat, slipping it over her shoulders while he held the door open. A cool breeze met them as they stepped outside. The air felt alive, carrying the soft hum of the city and the distant sound of traffic. For a few steps, they walked in silence, just aware of each other's presence. Their footsteps echoed softly against the damp pavement. A dog barked somewhere down the street. A bicycle rolled past, its tires whispering over the wet ground. She noticed how naturally their pace matched, neither too fast nor too slow, side by side.
So,
He said after a moment, glancing toward her.
have you always lived here?
She shook her head gently.
No,
She answered.
I moved here a few years ago.
He nodded, listening carefully.
From far away?
Not really, she said with a soft laugh.
Just far enough to feel new.
He smiled at that. They turned the corner, passing a small bookstore with warm lights glowing inside. For a moment, both of them slowed, drawn by the quiet comfort of the place.
I like this neighborhood.
He said. His voice carried a thoughtful warmth.
It feels peaceful.
She looked around, at the familiar buildings, the trees lining the street, the soft reflections of light on the wet pavement.
It is.
She agreed. A gentle silence settled between them again. But this time, it felt fuller, closer. As they continued walking, their hands brushed lightly, just for a second. An accidental touch, small, brief, yet impossible to ignore. Neither of them pulled away immediately. Instead, they shared a quick glance, a quiet acknowledgement. Something had changed, not dramatically, not suddenly, but enough to be felt. They completed the circle around the block and returned to the cafe entrance, where the warm light spilled out onto the sidewalk. He stopped near the door and turned toward her.
Thank you for coming with me.
He said. She met his gaze and felt a gentle warmth spread through her chest.
Thank you for asking.
She replied. For a moment they stood there, neither quite ready to leave. The sky above them had grown clearer now, the clouds drifting slowly apart. And somewhere in the quiet space between them, something new had taken root, something small, something steady, something that would not easily disappear. The mornings had grown cooler, the air sharper, carrying the scent of fallen leaves and distant rain. Inside the cafe, the windows fogged more quickly now, softening the view of the street outside. They had fallen into a rhythm, not planned, not spoken, simply lived. Most mornings he arrived first. He would sit at their table, hands wrapped around his cup, watching the door with quiet patience. And most mornings, she would step inside a few minutes later, bringing with her the familiar warmth of routine. Today was no different. She entered the cafe, brushing the chill from her coat, and found him already there. He looked up immediately, that same small smile, the one that had become part of her mornings.
You're right on time.
He said. She smiled as she sat down across from him.
So are you.
Steam rose slowly from their cups, drifting between them like a gentle curtain. Outside, a light wind moved through the trees, sending a swirl of golden leaves across the sidewalk. For a while, they spoke about simple things: the weather, the changing season, the small details of daily life. Easy conversation, comfortable silence. The kind that no longer needed effort. But something in his expression felt different today. Quieter, more thoughtful. She noticed it in the way he held his cup, turning it slowly between his hands as if searching for the right words.
Finally,
He spoke.
can I tell you something?
He asked. The question carried a seriousness that made her sit a little straighter.
Of course.
She answered. He took a slow breath.
I wasn't planning to stay here long.
He said. The words landed gently, but they carried weight. She felt it immediately, a small shift inside her chest. He looked down at the table, gathering his thoughts.
When I moved here,
He continued.
I thought it would just be temporary.
A pause.
6 months, maybe.
Her fingers tightened slightly around her cup.
And now?
She asked quietly. He lifted his gaze to meet hers.
Now I'm not so sure.
The honesty in his voice made her heart beat faster. Outside, a gust of wind pressed rain softly against the window, the sound steady and familiar. He let out a quiet breath.
This place feels different than I expected.
He said. Another pause.
And you?
He added, almost carefully.
Feel different too.
She lowered her eyes to the surface of her coffee. The steam had faded now. The warmth was still there, but softer, cooling. She realized she had stopped drinking it, that she had been listening instead, listening to something deeper than words.
I didn't expect this either.
She admitted. Her voice was gentle but steady. He watched her closely, searching her expression. Not for certainty, just for truth. The cafe around them continued its quiet rhythm, cups clinking, voices murmuring, the steady hiss of the espresso machine filling the air. Everything felt normal, and yet nothing felt the same, because sometimes feelings do not arrive all at once. Sometimes they settle quietly, like autumn. Soft, gradual, impossible to ignore. The cafe remained quiet around them. Outside, the rain continued to fall in a soft, steady rhythm, tapping gently against the windows. People moved along the sidewalk, heads lowered beneath umbrellas, their footsteps quick against the wet pavement. They simply sat there, sharing the silence, no longer uncertain, no longer pretending that this was just another ordinary morning. She looked down at her cup. The coffee had cooled even more now. He watched her carefully, as if weighing his next words, just waiting for the right moment.
I didn't mean to make things complicated.
He said quietly. His voice carried a gentle honesty. She shook her head.
You didn't?
She answered, and she meant it. Another pause settled between them, softer this time, filled with understanding rather than uncertainty. Outside, a car passed slowly through the rain, sending a faint ripple of water across the street. He leaned forward slightly, resting his elbows on the table.
I just didn't expect to find something that mattered this much.
He admitted. The words were simple, but they landed with quiet strength. Her heart responded immediately, not with fear, not with hesitation, but with recognition. Because she had felt it too, that steady pull, that growing warmth, that quiet sense of belonging. She reached for her cup again, wrapping her hands around it, feeling the last traces of heat. Then she looked up at him.
You know,
She said softly.
I used to come here just for the coffee.
A faint smile touched her lips.
It was part of my routine. Something predictable.
She paused, searching for the right words.
But lately,
She continued.
I've been coming here for a different reason.
He held her gaze, his expression open, hopeful. The cafe hummed gently around them, the soft hiss of the espresso machine, the quiet murmur of conversation, the steady rhythm of rain against glass. She took a slow breath, then with a small, steady movement, she reached across the table. Her hand rested lightly on his, intentional, warm. He did not move away. Instead, his fingers closed gently around hers, holding the moment in place. Just a quiet understanding passing between them. Outside, the rain began to soften. the steady rhythm fading into a gentle drizzle. She felt his hand close gently around hers, warm and steady. For a moment, neither of them moved. The cafe continued its quiet rhythm around them, cups clinking softly, voices murmuring in the background, the steady sound of rain fading into a light drizzle outside. He looked at her, searching her face, as if making sure the moment was real. She held his gaze. He stood slowly, still holding her hand, and stepped around the table. She rose to meet him, her heart beating a little faster, though her expression remained soft and certain. They stood close enough to feel each other's warmth, close enough to hear the quiet rhythm of shared breath. For a brief second, the world around them seemed to fade. Just the space between them. He lifted his free hand gently, brushing a loose strand of hair away from her face. The touch was careful. She leaned slightly toward him, not rushing, not afraid. And then, softly, almost shyly, he kissed her. A small kiss. Warm, the kind that carried more meaning than words ever could. When they parted, they remained close, their foreheads nearly touching, both of them smiling in quiet disbelief. Outside, the rain had nearly stopped. A pale light began to break through the clouds. She let out a soft breath, her fingers still resting in his. Because sometimes love does not arrive with grand gestures. Sometimes it begins with a simple question, a familiar table, and a small kiss. On an ordinary morning, a cup of coffee later. Have you missed part 1? Before you continue the journey, make sure to listen to part 1 first. The story begins there, with the first moments, the first feelings, and the path that leads to where we are now. Thank you for spending your time with TonightTales Audio. If this story made you smile, think, dream, or simply helped you relax, let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you'd like more stories like this. Every comment, every like, and every listener means more than you know. Until our paths cross again in another story, thank you for listening.